Hey guys, tonight we are going to travel back to a time of tall grass, slow turning wooden wheels, and the endless, golden horizon of the American West. You might imagine the pioneers as rugged, stone-faced adventurers who knew exactly what they were doing. But the truth is often much softer and more human than that. You probably believe this was a journey of constant, high-stakes action from the very first mile, but in reality, it began with a long, slow stretch of beautiful boredom. It was a season of packing heavy quilts, counting out bags of dried beans, and watching the sun set over the Illinois prairies while dreaming of a land that felt like a fairy tale. Before you get too comfortable and possibly fall asleep halfway through, tap like and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy this odd mix of boredom and history. It keeps the channel alive and the stories just sleepy enough to help you drift off again next time. While you settle in, feel free to share where you are listening from and what time it is in your corner of the world. It is always lovely to see the different quiet spaces where these stories find a home. Now, dim the lights, let the world outside grow quiet, and turn on a fan if you like that soft, steady hum in the background. Let your shoulders loosen and your breathing slow. This is your time to drift. No rush, no deadlines, no noise. Just you, a little warmth in the air, and the faint whisper of history waiting to unfold. So, settle in, and let's ease gently into tonight's journey together. You find yourself standing on the outskirts of Springfield, Illinois. It is mid-April in the year 1846. The air is crisp, but it carries the first real promise of spring warmth. You can feel the sun pressing gently against the back of your neck, a steady and reassuring weight. Around you, there is a controlled, rhythmic sort of chaos. Men are tightening the canvas covers over large, white-topped wagons. The fabric is thick and coarse under your fingers, smelling faintly of linseed oil and dust. You watch as the oxen are led to their yokes. These animals move with a deliberate, hypnotic slowness. Their massive shoulders rise and fall, heavy with muscle and patience. There is no urgency in their movements, only a deep, grounded sense of purpose. You listen to the sound of their breath, a low and steady huffing that blends into the background of the morning. You notice the way the light catches the dust motes dancing in the air, each one a tiny, golden speck drifting aimlessly in the breeze. In this moment, you are part of the group led by James Reed and the brothers George and Jacob Donner. You look at the wagons lined up in a row, looking like a fleet of land-bound ships ready to sail across a sea of grass. One wagon in particular catches your eye, the one belonging to the Reed family. It is a massive thing, taller and wider than the others. Some people call it the Pioneer Palace car, and you can see why. It is not just a transport vessel, it is a home on wheels. As you step closer to it, you notice the craftsmanship. It has a second story for sleeping, lined with soft, thick mattresses that look incredibly inviting. There is even a small iron stove inside, its chimney poking through the canvas. You imagine the scent of wood smoke and simmering stew filling the small space, while the rain drums a steady, rhythmic pattern on the roof outside. Historians still argue whether James Reed's decision to build such a luxurious, heavy wagon was a stroke of genius for family comfort, or a proud mistake that slowed the party down when every hour mattered. For now, however, it just looks like a fortress of cozy safety. You begin to walk alongside the wagons, As the journey starts, the sound of the wheels is a constant, low-frequency hum. The iron rims crunch against the dry earth, a repetitive and grounding noise. The grass of the prairie is still short, a vibrant, tender green that stretches out as far as you can see. It ripples in the wind like the surface of a calm lake. You feel the rhythm of your own footsteps, left and right, matching the slow rotation of the wheels. There is no need to hurry. The west is thousands of miles away, and today, you only need to cover a few of them. You think about what is packed inside your wagon. There are barrels of flour, heavy and solid. There are sacks of sugar and tins of tea. You can almost smell the dry, earthy scent of the grain. You have packed your life into this small wooden box. There are heirloom quilts, stitched with care by hands that are now far away. You think of the weight of the wool, the way it will feel tucked around your chin during the cool prairie nights. Everything has its place. Everything is tucked away, waiting for the long days ahead. The sun climbs higher in the sky, turning the world into a bright, overexposed photograph. The heat is not intense, just a gentle glow that makes the air feel thick and sweet. You pass by small farmhouses where people stand on their porches to wave. They look at you with a mix of awe and pity, but you only feel a sense of quiet excitement. You are moving. The world is changing around you, 1 inch at a time. You notice a quirky detail about the supplies. Among the essential beans and salted pork, there are also bottles of fine wine and expensive lace hidden in the reeds wagon. It seems strange to bring such delicate things into the wilderness, a tiny fragment of high society carried into the unknown. It is a reminder that you are not just traveling, you are trying to carry your world with you. You imagine the sound of a cork popping in the middle of a silent, moonlit desert, a sound that feels entirely out of place yet strangely comforting. As the afternoon fades into a long, purple twilight, the pace of the oxen never changes. They do not tire, and they do not rush. They simply exist in the present moment, pulling the weight of the future behind them. You find yourself matching their energy. Your mind begins to wander, drifting away from the worries of the day. You think about the path ahead, the legendary South Pass, and the wide, open plains. But those are problems for another month. Right now, there is only the cooling air and the sound of the evening crickets beginning their nightly song. The campfire is lit as the sun dips below the horizon. The flames are small and flickering, casting long, dancing shadows against the white canvas of the wagons. You sit on a folding stool, feeling the ache in your legs settle into a pleasant, dull hum. The smell of frying bacon begins to drift through the air, salty and rich. It is a simple smell, but in the stillness of the prairie, it feels like the most wonderful thing in the world. You look up at the stars. They are beginning to appear one by one, piercing through the deepening blue of the sky. Here, away from the glow of the town, they are unimaginably bright. They look like cold, distant diamonds scattered across a velvet cloth. You realize that you are sleeping under the same sky that people have watched for thousands of years. The stars do not change, and their steady, unblinking light is a comfort. The conversation around the fire is low and hushed. People talk about the price of land in California and the thickness of the grass they saw today. There is no talk of danger yet. The weather is perfect, the animals are strong, and the supplies are plentiful. This is the honeymoon phase of the journey, a time of golden light and easy miles. You let the voices wash over you like a gentle tide, not needing to catch every word. The tone is more important than the content. A soft, human murmur in the vast silence of the wild. You walk over to the oxen one last time before bed. They are resting now, their large bodies dark shapes against the grass. You can hear the rhythmic grinding of their teeth as they chew their cud. It is a peaceful, domestic sound. You reach out and touch the rough, warm hide of one of the leaders. The animal doesn't move, just continues its slow, meditative process. There is a lesson in that, you think. To take what you need from the earth and move forward without complaint. You climb into the back of your wagon. The air inside is still and smells of dry wood and old fabric. You pull your heavy quilt up to your chest, feeling the instant warmth it provides. The wagon sways slightly as you settle in, a movement like a boat at anchor. Outside, the wind whispers against the canvas, a soft, shushing sound that tells you everything is all right. You think about the fact that the party left Springfield on April 14th, a date that felt like the perfect threshold between winter and summer. It was a day of hope. You close your eyes and imagine the map of the continent unfolding in your mind. A vast, unexplored space waiting for your footprints. But the map is too big to think about all at once. Instead, you focus on the small things. The feel of the pillow under your head. The distant howl of a wolf that sounds more like a lonely song than a threat. The way your breath slows down as the coolness of the night fills the wagon. The journey has truly begun, but it doesn't feel like a leap into the unknown. It feels like a slow, steady walk toward a dream. You are not running away from anything. You are walking toward something better. The Pioneer Palace car sits nearby, a silent sentinel in the dark, its mirrors reflecting the faint starlight. You wonder if the mirrors feel lonely in the woods, or if they are happy to reflect the trees and the sky instead of parlor walls. You let your thoughts drift like the smoke from the dying fire, the rhythm of the day, the walking, the wheels, the oxen, the stars, repeats in your mind like a lullaby. You are tired in the best possible way, the kind of tiredness that comes from movement and fresh air. The world is very large, and you are very small, but you are exactly where you are supposed to be. The silence of the prairie is not empty. It is a full, heavy silence, thick with the history of the land and the potential of the future. You listen to the sound of the wind in the tall grass, a sound that historians say used to remind pioneers of the ocean. It is a constant, rushing sound that never truly stops. It is the sound of the earth breathing. As you fall deeper into relaxation, you imagine the millions of blades of grass moving in unison, a green sea swaying under the moon. You are a tiny speck on that sea, safe in your wooden ship, drifting toward the horizon. The tomorrow will bring more of the same slow wheels, the same heavy oxen, the same golden sun. And that is exactly what you want. The monotony is a gift. It is the steady beat of the journey's heart. You think one last time about the historians still argue phrase regarding James Reed. Was he a dreamer or a fool? Perhaps he was both. Perhaps everyone who looks at a horizon and decides to walk toward it has to be a little bit of both. It doesn't matter now. The stove in his wagon is cold, the family is asleep, and the prairie is vast. You sink further into your blankets. The wooden floor of the wagon is solid beneath you. The canvas above you is a shield against the stars. You are safe. You are warm. You are moving, even while you sleep, toward a land of golden hills and warm Pacific winds. But for now, the Illinois night is enough. The quiet is enough. The slow, rhythmic pulse of the expedition is enough to carry you into a deep, dreamless rest. The morning sun rises not with a shout, but with a soft, persistent glow that turns the canvas of your wagon into a warm, translucent shell. You wake to the muffled sounds of a camp coming to life, not the sharp noises of a city, but the low, grounding sounds of heavy ropes being coiled and the rhythmic clinking of metal chains. You are now deep into the Great Plains, a landscape that feels less like a journey and more like a permanent state of being. The world has become a simple palette of two colors: the deep, dusty green of the endless grass and the pale, shimmering blue of the infinite sky. You climb down from the wagon, your boots meeting the earth with a soft, familiar weight. The ground is dry and packed, holding the heat of yesterday's sun, and as you begin your walk, you realize that the horizon is a promise that never seems to get any closer. There is a strange, hypnotic peace in this part of the country. You find yourself walking beside the slow, moving oxen. Their pace so steady and predictable that it feels like the ticking of a grandfather clock. You watch the way their muscles ripple under their dusty hides, a slow wave of motion that starts at the shoulder and flows back to the hip. They do not look at the horizon, they only look at the few feet of earth directly in front of them. You decide to do the same. You focus on the way the prairie grass, thick and waist, high in places, bows before the wind. It moves in long, rhythmic surges, a silver, green tide that whispers against the wooden sides of the wagons. Historians still argue whether the party's pace across these flat, open plains was doomed from the start by their heavy loads, or if they were moving at a perfectly respectable speed for a year that saw an unprecedented number of travelers on the trail. For you, in this moment, speed feels like an abstract concept. There is only the movement, the breath, and the sun. As the morning stretches into the afternoon, the heat becomes a physical presence, a warm blanket draped over your shoulders. It is not a harsh heat, but a drowsy, heavy warmth that makes the air look like it is vibrating. You notice a curious thing about the landscape: the lack of trees. In the world you left behind, trees were the markers of distance and the providers of shade. Here, the shade is something you must carry with you, found only under the brim of your hat or beneath the arched canvas of the wagon. Because there is no wood to be found, you participate in one of the more quirky, domestic rituals of the plains. You walk with a burlap sack, scanning the ground for buffalo chips, the dried, sun-bleached dung of the great herds that passed this way weeks before. To a modern mind, it might seem unpleasant, but out here it is a clean, odorless, and essential gift. The chips feel like dried peat or thick cardboard in your hands, and you know that tonight they will burn with a steady, blue, tinged flame that smells faintly of toasted grass and ancient earth. You watch the Platte River as the trail follows its winding, silver path. It is a strange river, described by many as being a mile wide and only an inch deep. It does not roar or tumble. It simply slides across the landscape, a flat ribbon of water that reflects the sky so perfectly. You sometimes feel like you are walking on the edge of the world. You see the ripples caused by a hidden sandbar, a gentle disturbance on the surface that looks like a slow motion shiver. The water is the color of tea, carrying the silt of the mountains far to the west. You imagine that silt traveling from the high, cold peaks you have yet to see, coming down to meet you in the heat of the plains. It is a connection to a future you cannot yet imagine, a cool greeting from the heights. The dust is your constant companion. It is a fine, powdery substance that coats everything in a layer of soft, velvet gray. It settles into the folds of your clothes and turns the dark coats of the oxen into a muted charcoal. You find that you don't mind it. It is the signature of the trail, a physical record of the miles you have conquered. When you wipe your brow, the dust comes away in a smear of earth, a reminder that you are becoming a part of this landscape. The sound of the wagons in the dust is different than it was on the prairie grass of Illinois. Here, the wheels make a soft, sifting sound, like flour being poured into a bowl. It is a shushing noise that encourages the mind to wander, to drift away from the physical effort of the walk. You think about the mainstream historical fact that nearly 500 wagons were on the trail in 1846, creating a sort of rolling city that stretched for miles. Even though you are in the wilderness, you are rarely alone. You see the white tops of other companies in the distance, looking like tiny teeth against the jaw of the horizon. Sometimes you pass a trail post office, a large sun-bleached rock or a bleached buffalo skull where travelers have scrawled messages in charcoal. You stop to read one. It is a simple note written in a looping, elegant hand, telling a following brother that the water is good 2 miles ahead and that the cattle are strong. There is a profound, quiet beauty in these messages left in the middle of nowhere, a way for humans to reach out through the silence and the space. By mid-afternoon, you find yourself entering a state of walking meditation. The repetitive motion of your legs, the rhythmic creak of the wagon's wooden tongue, and the steady lowing of a distant calf blend into a single droning chord. You lose track of time. Is it 2 o'clock or 4? It doesn't matter. The sun is your only clock, and it is in no hurry to reach the western edge of the world. You notice the small things that you would have missed in a faster life. You see a beetle struggling over a mountain of a pebble, its shell shimmering like a dark jewel. You see the way a single hawk circles high above, a tiny dark cross against the blue, effortlessly riding the invisible pillars of warm air. You feel a sense of kinship with that hawk. You are both moving through a space so vast that your individual lives feel small, quiet, and perfectly contained. The wagons are pulled into a large circle as the sun begins its long, slow descent. This is the corral, a wooden fortress that provides a sense of enclosure in the wide, open world. You help unyoke the oxen, feeling the heat radiate off their bodies as the heavy wooden beams are lifted from their necks. They shake themselves, their hides quivering, and move toward the river with a slow, heavy grace. You watch them drink, the sound of the water lapping against their muzzles a cool and refreshing melody. The air begins to change now. The heavy, golden heat of the day is being replaced by a thin, lilac-colored coolness that rises from the ground. You begin to build the evening fire using the buffalo chips you gathered. The smoke rises straight up in a thin, gray needle, as there is no wind to disturb it. The smell is surprisingly pleasant, sweet and earthy, like a memory of a summer hayfield. You sit on the tongue of the wagon, watching the light change. The horizon is no longer a distant promise. It is a canvas of burning orange and deep, bruised purple. The silhouettes of the wagons are sharp and black against the glow, looking like ancient monuments. You feel a deep, settling stillness in your bones. The miles you walked today are gone, folded into the history of the trail, and the miles of tomorrow are still sleeping. Dinner is a simple affair, a bowl of thick cornmeal mush sweetened with a little molasses. You eat slowly, savoring the warmth and the grainy texture. You listen to the sounds of the camp, the low murmur of families, the occasional clink of a tin cup, the soft rustle of the wind in the canvas. There is no urgency here. In the Pioneer Palace car, you imagine the Reed daughters sitting on their cushioned seats, perhaps reading a book by the light of a single, steady candle. Even in the middle of the Great Plains, there is room for a little bit of grace, a little bit of the inner life. You wonder what they think about when they look out at the dark. Do they see a void, or do they see a beginning? Historians still argue whether the party's decision to rest their cattle for extra days at certain points was a fatal delay or a necessary mercy. You look at the oxen, now settled on the ground, their large eyes reflecting the dying embers of the fire. They look so tired, yet so resilient. You realize that out here, the line between mercy and mistake is as thin as a blade of grass. You choose to believe in the mercy. You choose to value the rest. The stars are coming out now, and they are different than the stars you knew in the east. Here, they seem lower, as if you could reach out and brush them with your hand. They don't just twinkle, they glow with a steady, fierce light. You lie down on a blanket outside for a moment, looking straight up. The Milky Way is a thick, frosted smear of light across the center of the sky, a river of stars that dwarfs the Platte. You feel a sense of profound insignificance, but it is a comfortable feeling. In a world this large, your worries are too small to be seen. You are just a guest of the plains, a temporary traveler passing through an eternal space. You climb into your wagon and feel the familiar embrace of your bedding. The wool is a bit scratchy, but it is warm and smells of home. The wood of the wagon frame is solid and reassuring. As you drift towards sleep, you hear the distant, melodic yip of a coyote. It is a lonely sound, but it isn't frightening. It is just the voice of the plains, a reminder that the world is alive even when it is still. You think about the rhythm of the day, the dust, the grass, the buffalo chips, the silver river. It repeats in your mind, a slow, looping reel of images that grows fuzzier and softer with every breath. The wagon sways almost imperceptibly as someone moves in a nearby camp, a motion like a cradle being rocked. You are safe in your wooden shell. The Great Plains are wrapped around you like a vast, silent ocean, and you are drifting peacefully toward the west. There is no need to think about the mountains yet. There is no need to think about the snow. There is only the dark, the warmth of the quilt, and the steady, quiet heartbeat of the trail. You breathe in the scent of the dry earth and the cooling canvas, and you let the world fade away into a soft, gray blur. The journey is long, but the night is deep, and the rest is well earned. You close your eyes, and the last thing you see in your mind is the image of the oxen's heavy, rhythmic shoulders moving you forward, one slow step at a time, into the heart of the great, quiet West. The silence of the plains is a lullaby, and the stars are the only lamps you need. You are falling, slowly and gently, into a sleep that is as vast and peaceful as the horizon you walk toward all day long. The landscape has shifted now, changing from the rolling, liquid green of the plains to a world that feels as though it has been bleached by the sun and then frozen in time. You find yourself standing at the edge of the Great Salt Lake Desert. Behind you are the mountains, and before you lies a shimmering, white expanse that stretches out like a sea of dried milk. It is a place of silence, so profound it seems to have a weight of its own. As you step forward, the ground beneath your boots is no longer soft earth, but a hard, brittle crust of salt and alkali. It yields with a rhythmic, muted resistance, a sound like dry parchment being folded. The air is different here. It is thin and tastes faintly of minerals and ancient, dried-up oceans. You feel the stillness of the desert pressing against your skin, a warm, dry embrace that encourages you to move slowly, to breathe deeply, and to let the vastness of the space fill your mind. The sun is a brilliant, unblinking eye in a sky so pale it is almost white. You notice the way the light reflects off the salt flats, creating a world of mirrors where the horizon disappears into a hazy, shimmering line. To protect your eyes from the blinding glare, you use a trick some of your fellow travelers have adopted, draping a thin, dark veil over the brim of your hat or wearing snow goggles made of fine wire mesh. Looking through the dark fabric, the world turns a soft, charcoal gray. The blinding white becomes a gentle silver, and the harshness of the desert is softened into a dreamy, monochrome landscape. It is a quirky, practical detail of trail life. Pioneers in the middle of a burning desert dressed as if they were attending a somber Victorian garden party. You watch the other wagons moving ahead of you, their white tops looking like ghostly ships sailing across a frozen lake. You are now following the path suggested by Lansford Hastings, a man who promised a shortcut that would shave hundreds of miles off your journey. Historians still argue whether Lansford Hastings actually believed the route was safe, or if he was simply an ambitious promoter, willing to risk lives for a dream of a shorter, empire-building path. In this moment, the politics of the trail don't matter to you. All that matters is the next step. The shortcut has led you into the heart of the Great Salt Desert, a stretch of 80 miles without a single drop of fresh water. You move with a sense of quiet determination, your body falling into a slow, swinging gait that requires the least amount of energy. The heat is a constant, vibrating presence, making the air ahead of you ripple like the surface of a pond. You begin to see things in the distance that you know cannot be real. A blue, sparkling lake appears on the horizon, its shores lined with lush, green trees that seem to sway in a cool breeze. You can almost hear the sound of the water lapping against the sand. But as you walk, the lake recedes, staying always just out of reach until it finally shimmers and vanishes, replaced by more of the endless, white salt. These mirages are a strange, hypnotic part of the desert experience. They are not frightening. They are like dreams that have escaped into the waking world. You let yourself enjoy the beauty of the illusion, without needing it to be true. You understand that the desert is playing with the light, and you are content to be a witness to its magic. The oxen are struggling now, their heads hanging low, their large, dark eyes focused on the ground. You walk beside them, placing a hand on the side of the wagon to steady yourself. The wood is hot to the touch, the grain of the timber feeling rough and dry. You can feel the heat radiating from the iron rims of the wheels, a steady warmth that speaks of the friction between the wagon and the salt. The sound of the wheels has changed again. On the salt flats, they make a high, thin whistling sound, a metallic hum that vibrates through the frame of the wagon. It is a lonely, haunting sound, but it is also consistent. A mechanical lullaby that tells you the journey is still progressing. Even if it feels like you are standing still, you think about the mainstream historical fact that this shortcut actually added more than 125 miles to the journey, much of it through the most difficult terrain on the continent. But time has a different meaning in the desert. Hours stretch and blur until the afternoon becomes a single, long moment of golden light. You find yourself thinking about the water you left behind at the last spring. You imagine the weight of the water in the wooden barrels, the way it sloshes softly against the staves when the wagon tilts. The thought of it is a cool internal comfort. You don't need to drink it yet. Just knowing there is enough. You practice a kind of mental conservation, keeping your thoughts small and quiet to match the stillness of the air. As the sun begins to move toward the west, the shadows grow long and thin, stretching out across the white salt-like blue fingers. The temperature starts to drop, the heavy heat of the day lifting away to reveal a sharp, crisp coolness. This is the time when the desert is at its most beautiful. The white ground turns to shades of pink, lavender, and deep violet. The mountains in the distance, which looked like cardboard cutouts in the midday sun, now gain depth and texture, their peaks glowing with a soft, orange fire. You feel a surge of quiet energy as the air becomes easier to breathe. The pace of the oxen picks up slightly, their instinct telling them that the night is for moving. You continue to walk as the stars emerge. In the desert, the transition from day to night is a slow, majestic process. The sky turns a deep, velvety indigo, and the stars appear not as tiny points of light, but as large, glowing lanterns. The reflection of the starlight on the salt flats is so bright that you can see your own shadow on the ground. It is a surreal, magical experience, walking through a world made of silver and shadow. The silence is absolute. There is no wind, no rustle of grass, no sound of water. There is only the rhythmic creak of the wagons and the soft, dusty thud of the oxen's hooves. You feel as though you are the only person left in the world, a solitary traveler moving through a landscape of pure light. You notice that the salt is beginning to change. In some places, it becomes soft and gray, a thick, sticky mud that clings to the wheels and makes every step an effort. This is the dreaded alkali mud, a substance that acts like a slow motion trap. You watch as the men work together to push the wagons, their movements slow and coordinated. There is no shouting, only the low, heavy grunts of effort and the sound of the mud sucking at the wooden spokes. You see the way the mud coats the legs of the cattle, a dark, heavy stockings that makes them look like strange, prehistoric creatures. It is a reminder that even in this beautiful, silver world, the earth has a way of holding on to you. Despite the struggle, there is a sense of community that grows in the dark. You see the lanterns of other wagons swaying in the distance, small, golden sparks that act as beacons. You are all part of the same slow, moving constellation. You find yourself walking near the Donner family wagon. You see the silhouettes of the children huddled together under the canvas, their faces pale in the moonlight. They are quiet, watching the world go by with wide, sleepy eyes. You feel a sense of responsibility for them, a quiet promise to keep moving so that they can reach the green hills of the west. The desert is a test, but it is also a shared experience that binds you all together in a silent, unbreakable bond. The night stretches on, and you lose track of how many miles you have covered. The rhythm of the walk has become a part of your heartbeat. You find yourself drifting into a state of half sleep while you walk, your body moving on autopilot while your mind wanders through memories of home. You think of the cool, damp woods of Illinois, the smell of wet moss, and the sound of a running stream. These memories are like cool compresses for your soul, helping you endure the dry reality of the salt. You are not distressed. You are simply existing in two places at once, the physical world of the desert and the internal world of your dreams. You think about the quirky detail of the snow goggles. Again, you realize that out here, survival is often about these small, clever adaptations. It is about finding a way to make the impossible feel normal. You adjust the veil over your face, feeling the soft mesh against your cheeks. It creates a private, enclosed space for you, a little room of shade that you carry through the moonlit waste. You feel protected and calm. The desert is vast, but you are contained within your own quiet rhythm. Historians still argue whether the party should have turned back when they first saw the salt flats. But looking at the moon reflecting off the white earth, you realize that the human spirit isn't built for turning back. It is built for the horizon. The salt flats are a barrier, yes, but they are also a bridge. Every step you take, however small and difficult, is a step away from the past and toward the future. The slowness of the journey is not a failure, it is a meditation on endurance. You learn to value the inches. You learn to love the stillness. As the first light of dawn begins to gray the eastern sky, you see a line of dark green in the distance. It is not a mirage this time. It is the edge of the desert, the beginning of the sagebrush and the promise of a spring. The relief you feel is not a sharp, shouting joy, but a deep, cooling wave that washes over you. You watch as the oxen lift their heads, their nostrils flaring as they catch the scent of water on the morning air. They don't run, they simply continue their steady, patient walk, knowing that the reward is coming. You reach the springs just as the sun breaks over the mountains. The water is clear and cold, bubbling up from the earth in a small, sandy pool. You watch as the oxen are unyoked and allowed to drink. The sound of them gulping the water is a beautiful, rhythmic percussion. You kneel by the pool and dip your hands in, feeling the incredible, shocking cold against your skin. You wash the salt from your face, the water dissolving the white crust and leaving your skin feeling fresh and alive. You drink slowly, the water tasting of deep earth and life. You find a place to lie down in the shade of a small clump of willows. The leaves rustle above you, a soft, papery sound that reminds you of the world of living things. The ground is soft and damp, a wonderful contrast to the hard salt you have walked on for days. You close your eyes and feel the weight of your journey settle into the earth. The desert is behind you now, a silver memory that already feels like a dream. You are safe. You are hydrated. You are ready for the next part of the story. As you drift toward sleep, you think about the shimmer of the salt and the glow of the stars. You think about the shortcut and the lessons it taught you about patience and the beauty of the slow path. The world is very large, and you are very small, but you have crossed a sea of salt on your own 2 feet. The rhythm of the desert, the heat, the light, the silence, fades into a soft, gray hum in your mind. You are falling into a deep, well-earned rest, protected by the shade of the willows and the steady, quiet heartbeat of the spring. The desert was a world of light, but the sleep that finds you now is a world of cool, dark water and the gentle whisper of the wind in the leaves. The relief of the springs and the coolness of the willow trees eventually give way to a new kind of landscape, one that is vertical and ancient. You find yourself standing at the base of the Wasatch Mountains, looking up at peaks that seem to touch the very ceiling of the world. The horizontal infinity of the desert has been replaced by a rugged, towering wall of granite and green. As you begin the ascent, you feel the change in your own body. Your lungs expand to take in the thin, sharp air, which carries the scent of crushed pine needles and cold stone. The climb is slow, so slow that it feels as though the world has entered a state of suspended animation. Every step is deliberate. Every turn of the wooden wheels is a hard-won victory against the pull of the earth. You are no longer just a traveler. You are a pioneer in the most literal sense, carving a path where none existed before. The sounds of the forest wrap around you like a heavy, velvet blanket. There is the rhythmic, metallic ring of axes echoing through the canyons, a steady beat that marks the progress of the men ahead of you. They are clearing the way, cutting through thickets of mountain mahogany and willow so that the wagons can pass. You listen to the sound of the branches being dragged away, a soft, shushing noise that blends with the constant murmur of the mountain streams. These streams are everywhere, thin ribbons of liquid crystal that tumble over mossy rocks. The sound of the water is a continuous, bubbling trill, a natural white noise that helps to quiet your mind. You find yourself watching the way the sunlight filters through the canopy of aspen trees, creating a shifting mosaic of gold and shadow on the forest floor. The leaves of the aspens are never still. They tremble in the slightest breeze, a soft, papery rustle that sounds like 1,000 tiny fans. You are now in the thick of the shortcut that was supposed to save you time. Historians still argue whether the delays in the Wasatch Mountains were the primary reason for the party's late arrival at the Sierra Nevada, or if it was a combination of many small, quiet moments of hesitation. You think about the mainstream historical fact that the Donner Party spent 21 days crossing only 36 miles of this rugged terrain. In a modern world of high-speed travel, 36 miles is a blink of an eye, but here it is a lifetime. You learn to appreciate the beauty of the microscopic. You notice the way the moss grows in thick, emerald cushions on the north side of the rocks. You see the intricate patterns of the lichen, looking like tiny, frosted maps of unknown continents. You realize that when you move this slowly, the world opens up to you in ways that faster travelers can never understand. The work of moving the wagons uphill is a masterclass in slow, coordinated effort. You watch as the teams of oxen are doubled up, with 12 or 16 of the massive animals pulling a single wagon up a steep incline. The sound of their breathing is a deep, rhythmic labor, a heavy huffing that matches the slow, steady beat of your own heart. There is a quirky, practical detail to this mountain travel that you find fascinating: the use of rough locks. To keep the wagons from careening down the steep slopes, heavy iron chains are wrapped around the rear wheels, locking them in place so they cannot rotate. The wagon is then dragged down the hill like a giant sled. You listen to the sound of the iron grinding against the stone, a low, vibrating growl that you can feel in the soles of your feet. It is a grounding sound, a reminder of the physical reality of the mountains and the strength of the machines you have built to conquer them. As the afternoon light turns a deep, honeyed amber, you find yourself walking through a grove of ancient cedars. The air here is cool and dim, the thick branches of the trees blocking out the heat of the sun. The scent is overwhelming, rich, spicy, and clean. It smells like a cabinet of memories, a scent that is both comforting and timeless. You run your hand along the bark of a tree, feeling the deep, vertical ridges and the soft, fibrous texture. The tree has stood here for hundreds of years, watching the seasons change and the mountains shift. To the cedar, your passage is just a brief, quiet moment in an eternity of silence. This perspective brings a sense of peace to your journey. You are not fighting the mountain, you are merely passing through its long, slow history. You notice the way the shadows settle into the canyons long before the sun actually sets. The world becomes a study in blue and gray. The granite peaks above you catch the last rays of the sun, glowing with a fierce, ethereal pink that looks like burning coal. Below, in the valleys, the air is already still and cool. You watch a hawk glide silently between the peaks, its wings outspread and motionless. It seems to be suspended in the air, a dark silhouette against the darkening sky. You feel a similar sense of suspension. Your life has been narrowed down to the next few feet of trail, the next meal, and the next place to sleep. This simplicity is a gift. It strips away the noise of the world and leaves you with the quiet, essential rhythm of existence. The evening camp is nestled in a high meadow, a flat expanse of grass surrounded by a ring of protective peaks. The grass here is different than the tall grass of the plains. It is short, sweet, and incredibly green, fed by the melting snow of the summits. You help to gather wood for the fire, choosing the dry, silver branches of fallen pines. As the wood catches flame, it releases a shower of tiny, golden sparks that drift up toward the stars. The fire smells of resin and high-altitude air. You sit on a smooth, cold rock, feeling the warmth of the flames on your face, while the back of your neck is cooled by the mountain breeze. The transition between heat and cold is a constant, sensory reminder of where you are. Dinner is a quiet affair. You eat a piece of hardtack soaked in a bowl of hot broth, the warmth spreading through your chest like a slow tide. Around you, the other members of the party are equally quiet. The mountains have a way of humbling human voices. People speak in low tones, their words blending into the sound of the wind in the trees. You think about a quirky historical tidbit. Some of the pioneers brought small musical instruments with them, like flutes or fiddles, tucked away in the corners of their wagons. Sometimes, in the stillness of the mountain night, you hear the faint, lonely notes of a melody drifting through the camp. It is a fragile sound, a human song in a world of stone and wind. It doesn't compete with the silence, it enhances it, making the night feel more intimate and safe. Historians still argue whether the party's decision to follow the advice of the missing letter, a warning from an old mountain man named James Clyman that was supposedly never delivered to the right hands, would have changed the outcome of the trip. You find yourself wondering about all the letters that have been written and lost in these mountains. The mountains are a place of secrets, of messages carved into trees and whispers lost in the canyons. But you don't dwell on the what-ifs. The mountain doesn't care about what might have been, it only cares about what is. And what is, right now, is the steady glow of the campfire and the immense, sheltering presence of the peaks. The stars in the high mountains are different from any you have ever seen. They don't seem like distant objects. They feel like a canopy of light just above the treetops. Because the air is so thin and clear, the stars don't twinkle. They burn with a steady, unwavering brilliance. You can see the dark rifts in the Milky Way, the cosmic clouds of dust that look like shadows in a river of light. You lie on your back, feeling the solid, unyielding earth beneath you, and you let your mind expand into the space above. You feel a sense of profound stillness. The effort of the day, the clearing of the brush, the dragging of the wagons, it all fades away into the vast, silent geometry of the cosmos. You climb into your wagon for the night, the wood of the frame feeling cold and solid. You wrap yourself in your thickest wool blankets, feeling the weight of the fabric settle over you. The air inside the wagon is crisp and smells of the high forest. You listen to the sounds of the mountain night, the distant, muffled tumble of a rock, the soft hoot of an owl, the rhythmic breathing of the oxen nearby. These are the sounds of a world that is at rest. The mountain is not a place of danger. It is a place of deep, ancient sleep. You find yourself matching its rhythm, your breathing slowing down to match the slow, steady pulse of the stone. You think about the miles you have covered today. They were few, but they were significant. You have moved higher. You have seen the world from a new perspective. The shortcut has been a struggle, but it has also been a revelation of your own strength and the beauty of the vertical world. You are not in a hurry. The Sierra Nevada is still ahead, but for tonight, the Wasatch is your home. You let the image of the trembling aspen leaves fill your mind, a soft silver, green shimmer that lulls you into a state of deep relaxation. As you fall deeper into sleep, you imagine the mountains as giant, sleeping beings, their peaks covered in a blanket of stars. You are a tiny, welcomed guest in their house. The silence of the high altitudes is a lullaby, a heavy, quiet sound that blocks out the rest of the world. You are safe in your wooden ship, tucked into the folds of the granite, drifting peacefully toward the next dawn. The rhythm of the trail is now the rhythm of the mountain. Slow, steady, and eternal. You close your eyes, and the last thing you feel is the cool, pine-scented breath of the night air, a gentle touch that carries you into a dreamless mountain rest. The journey continues, one slow inch at a time, but tonight, the movement is only in your dreams. You are at peace with the slowness. You are at peace with the height. You are falling, slowly and gently, into the heart of the high, quiet forest, where the only clock is the turning of the stars, and the only deadline is the arrival of the morning sun. Sleep comes to you like a mountain mist, soft and gray and absolute, wrapping you in a cocoon of silence and warmth. The air has changed. The crisp, pine, scented breeze of the high mountains has taken on a sharper, more metallic edge. You find yourself at the foot of the Sierra Nevada, the final, great barrier between you and the lush, green valleys of California. The world around you is a study in muted grays and deep, shadowy greens. The granite peaks loom above, their jagged edges softened by a thin, ethereal veil of mist that clings to the upper reaches of the slopes. As you walk, you notice that the ground is no longer dry and dusty. It is damp, the earth yielding beneath your boots with a soft, heavy resistance. There is a weight to the atmosphere, a feeling of stillness that is both peaceful and expectant. You feel the cool dampness on your cheeks, a gentle touch that makes you pull your collar a little higher. The rhythm of your walk remains steady, but there is a new, quiet urgency in the way the wheels turn. You are moving through the Truckee River Canyon, a narrow, winding path that follows the cold, churning water. The sound of the river is a constant, low-frequency roar, a white noise that fills the space between the mountains. It is a grounding sound, a reminder of the raw power of the landscape. You watch the way the water breaks over the dark rocks, creating a fine, white mist that hangs in the air. Historians still argue whether the party's decision to rest for 5 days at Truckee Meadows just before the final climb was a fatal lapse in judgment or a physiological necessity for the exhausted cattle and families. For you, in this moment, the rest feels like a distant memory. All that exists is the climb. You look up at the sky, which has turned the color of a tarnished silver spoon. The light is flat and even, casting no shadows. It is a world without highlights or depths, a soft monochrome dream. Then you see it. A single, tiny crystal of white drifts down from the gray void above. It moves with a slow, erratic grace, caught in an invisible current of air. You watch it as it falls, a miniature star descending to earth. It lands on the dark wool of your sleeve, and for a few seconds it remains perfectly intact, a complex hexagonal miracle of geometry. Then it vanishes, leaving behind a tiny, glistening bead of water. Another flake follows, and then another. They are silent. Unlike the rain, which drums and splashes, the snow arrives with a profound, absolute silence. It is a quiet that seems to absorb all other sounds. The roar of the river feels further away, and the creak of the wagons is muffled, as if the world is being wrapped in layers of cotton. The mainstream historical fact is that the Donner Party reached the base of the pass on October 31st, 1846. In a normal year, the heavy snows of the Sierra would not arrive for several more weeks. But this is not a normal year. You are witnessing the beginning of one of the most severe winters in the history of the region. As you continue to walk, the flakes become larger and more frequent. They are no longer tiny crystals, they are feathers of snow, thick and wet, that cling to everything they touch. You watch as a thin, white line begins to form along the tops of the wooden wagon bows. It looks like a decorative trim, a soft white lace against the dark canvas. The backs of the oxen are soon covered in a layer of frost, their dark hides turning a ghostly, salt and pepper gray. They don't seem to mind the cold yet. They simply lower their heads and keep moving, their breath blooming in the air like small, white clouds. The quirky detail of this moment is the way the snow changes the physics of the trail. On dry ground, the wagon wheels cut into the earth, creating a sharp, well-defined track. In the snow, the wheels begin to slip and slide. The iron rims lose their grip on the smooth stones, and the wagons sway with a gentle, oceanic motion. You find yourself walking closer to the wagon, occasionally placing a hand on the side to help guide it. The wood is cold and wet, the moisture seeping into the grain. You notice that the snow is beginning to build up on the spokes of the wheels, turning them into solid, white discs. It is a beautiful transformation. The rugged, functional machines are being turned into sculptures of ice and wood. You feel a sense of wonder at the way the landscape is being erased and rewritten by the falling white. As the afternoon progresses, the temperature drops just a few degrees more. The wet snow turns into dry snow, the kind that doesn't melt on contact. It begins to accumulate on the ground, a thin, white carpet that covers the rocks and the mud. Your footsteps make a soft, rhythmic sound now, a muted, compressed hushing that is incredibly satisfying to hear. The world is becoming simplified. The complex textures of the forest are being smoothed over. The sharp edges of the granite peaks are being rounded, and the dark green of the pines is being dusted with silver. You feel as though you are walking through a painting that is still being finished, the artist adding more and more white with every passing minute. The climb toward the summit becomes steeper. You can see the pass ahead of you, a low notch in the mountain wall that represents the doorway to California. It looks so close, yet the snow is making every foot of progress feel like a mile. You watch as the men ahead try to drive the cattle through the deepening drifts. The snow is now ankle-deep, and in some places, the wind has piled it into small, rolling waves. Historians still argue whether a single, determined push on that first night of the storm could have seen the wagons over the top, or if the animals were already too weak to breast the rising tide of white. You don't feel the weight of history yet. You only feel the weight of your own breath and the cool, damp air in your lungs. You are focused on the rhythm, the slow, steady lifting of your feet, the rhythmic swaying of the wagon, the silent descent of the flakes. You notice a change in the light as the sun begins to set behind the heavy clouds. The world doesn't turn orange or purple. It simply fades from silver to a deep, luminous blue. The snow seems to hold the light, glowing with an internal radiance that makes the forest feel enchanted. You see the cabins of the Breen family and the Murphys near the lake. They are small, dark shapes against the white, looking like islands in a frozen sea. You decide to make camp here for the night, hoping that the storm will break by morning. The process of unyoking the oxen is slower now. Your fingers are a bit stiff, and the leather straps of the yokes are cold and stubborn. You move with a deliberate, meditative slowness, not rushing, just focusing on the task at hand. You gather what dry wood you can find, brushing the snow off the fallen branches of the lodgepole pines. The fire is harder to start in the damp air, but eventually a small orange flame begins to lick at the bark. The smell of the smoke is different in the snow. It is sharper and cleaner, a thin, blue thread that rises into the dark. You sit near the flames, watching the way the heat creates a small, circular oasis of brown earth in the middle of the white. The snow continues to fall all around you, but it doesn't cross the invisible line of the fire's warmth. It is a tiny, flickering fortress against the winter. You feel a sense of profound coziness as the warmth begins to seep through your boots and into your toes. The cold of the mountain makes the warmth of the fire feel like a luxury, a precious gift to be savored. Dinner is a bowl of hot soup, the steam rising up to meet the falling snow. You watch as a snowflake lands in your bowl and disappears instantly into the broth. It is a small, poetic reminder of the balance between the elements. You eat slowly, feeling the warmth spread through your body like a slow, glowing coal. Around you, the camp is unusually quiet. The snow has acted as a giant muffler, silencing the voices and the movements of the people. You hear only the soft, rhythmic hiss of the fire and the occasional, muffled thud of snow falling from a heavily laden branch. It is a peaceful, introspective silence. You find yourself thinking about how far you have come. The plains, the desert, the mountains, and how this white world is the final chapter of the journey. You look up at the trees. The pines are heavy with snow, their branches bowing low toward the ground. They look like giant, white, cloaked figures standing guard around the camp. There is a sense of protection in their presence, a feeling that you are being cradled by the forest. The wind is low, just a soft, shushing sound in the high needles. You feel a deep, settling stillness in your soul. The snow is not an enemy, it is a blanket, a quiet invitation to rest. You realize that for tonight, there is nowhere else to go. The path is hidden, the mountains are asleep, and the world has been reduced to this small circle of light and warmth. You climb into the wagon, feeling the familiar embrace of the blankets. The canvas above you is already heavy with a layer of snow, which acts as a natural insulator. The interior of the wagon is dark and quiet, the only light being the faint, blue glow that filters through the snow-covered fabric. You listen to the sound of the storm outside. It isn't a roar, it is a soft, persistent tapping, the sound of a billion tiny crystals settling onto the earth. It is the most hypnotic sound you have ever heard. A rhythmic, infinite percussion that lulls your mind into a state of pure relaxation. You think about the Pioneer Palace car nearby, its fine mirrors now reflecting only the soft blue dark. You wonder if the mirrors like the silence. Historians still argue whether the party realized the gravity of their situation that first night at the lake. But as you lie there, feeling the warmth of your own breath, the gravity feels like a soft pillow's weight. You are not afraid. You are simply tired in a way that only a long journey can create. You feel your muscles letting go of the tension of the climb. Your shoulders sink into the mattress, and your breathing slows down to match the slow, steady rhythm of the falling snow. The world outside is growing white and deep, but inside your wooden shell, you are safe and warm. You let your thoughts drift away from the trail and the mountains. You imagine the snow covering the entire world, a soft, white velvet that smooths over all the rough places and quiets all the noise. You are a part of that silence. You are a tiny, warm spark in a vast, cool universe. The rhythm of the flakes, falling, settling, becomes the rhythm of your own heart. You are drifting now, moving away from the physical world and into the soft, gray, blue landscape of sleep. The mountains are high, the snow is deep, but the rest is absolute. As you fall deeper into relaxation, you think of the oxen resting in the drifts, their large bodies huddled together for warmth. You think of the pines bowing their heads in the dark. You think of the fire, now just a bed of glowing embers under the snow. Everything is in its place. Everything is as it should be. The journey has paused, and in the pause, there is peace. You close your eyes, and the last thing you see is the image of a single, perfect snowflake, a tiny star of ice that carries you into a deep, dreamless, and wintry rest. The silence is your lullaby, and the snow is your blanket. You are safe. You are warm. You are asleep. You have moved from the wooden shell of your wagon into a different kind of sanctuary, a small, sturdy cabin made of heavy pine logs. The transition from the constant movement of the trail to the absolute stillness of the lake camp is a strange, hypnotic shift. For months, your world was defined by the rhythm of turning wheels and the changing horizon. But now, your world has shrunk to the dimensions of this one room. The walls are thick and dark, the logs still wearing their rough, shaggy bark. Between the logs, the gaps have been stuffed with chinking, a mixture of mud, moss, and dry grass that acts as a seal against the winter air. You run your hand along the wood, feeling the cold, solid reality of it. The cabin doesn't sway, and it doesn't creak with the motion of travel. It sits heavy and deep on the earth, a permanent anchor in a world of shifting white. The light inside the cabin is soft and amber, filtered through the smoke of a small, persistent fire in the center of the room. There are no windows. The only light comes from the doorway, which is now a glowing, blue rectangle framed by the deepening snow outside, or from the flickering flames of the hearth. This dimness is not gloomy, it is protective. It wraps around you like a heavy cloak, encouraging your eyes to rest and your mind to turn inward. You watch the way the shadows dance on the ceiling, long, slow movements that follow the heartbeat of the fire. The scent is a rich, domestic blend of wood smoke, damp wool, and the faint, sweet smell of dried pine needles. It is the smell of a winter that has decided to stay, a scent that signals a time for hibernating rather than journeying. A mainstream historical fact about these shelters is that they were not all built from scratch. The Breen family, for instance, took over a small cabin that had been built 2 years earlier by another group of travelers, the Stevens, Townsend, Murphy party. You find a strange comfort in this, the idea that you are occupying a space that has already sheltered others. You are part of a quiet, repeating history of the mountains. You settle into a corner of the cabin, sitting on a pile of thick, hand-woven blankets. The ground is covered with a layer of pine boughs, which provide a springy, aromatic floor that cushions your movements. You listen to the sound of the wind outside. It is a distant, hollow roar high up in the peaks, but down here among the trees, it is reduced to a soft, rhythmic shushing against the logs. It is a sound that reinforces your sense of safety. The storm is out there, but you are in here, the quirky, fringe tidbit of your daily life in the cabin is the surprising amount of literature that exists within these wooden walls. Despite the desperate need for food and space, the Reed family and others managed to keep several books with them. In the quiet hours of the afternoon, you find yourself looking at a well-worn copy of a book, the pages thin and yellowed. You don't necessarily need to read the words, you simply enjoy the feel of the paper and the steady, orderly rows of black type. Reading becomes a slow, meditative act. You might spend an hour on a single page, letting the ideas drift through your mind like the falling snow outside. The children in the camp often spend their time practicing their letters in the suit on the back of a shovel or telling long, rambling stories that have no beginning and no end. It is a world of words and imagination, a way to build a bridge back to the civilization you left behind. Historians still argue whether the decision of the Donner families to camp several miles away from the lake at Prosser Creek, while the rest of the party stayed at the cabins, created a fatal disconnect that hindered their collective survival. But in the quiet of the cabin, such debates feel like the concerns of another world. Your focus is on the small, rhythmic tasks of the present. One of these tasks is the melting of snow. You take a large copper pot and step out into the blue light of the doorway. The snow is now so high that you have to step up out of the cabin rather than down. You scoop up the clean, white powder, feeling the intense, dry cold against your skin. Back inside, you place the pot near the fire. You watch as the snow collapses in on itself, turning from a white fluff into a clear, shimmering pool of liquid. The sound of the water beginning to simmer is a tiny, domestic song, a rhythmic clicking and bubbling that tells you the world is still warm. Time has lost its sharp edges. Without the sun to mark the hours, or the trail to mark the miles, the days blend into one another like layers of a drift. You wake when the light in the cabin changes from a deep charcoal to a soft gray. You eat small, measured portions of whatever is left in the stores, perhaps a few grains of boiled wheat or a thin slice of salted meat. You eat with a slow, deliberate focus, savoring the texture and the warmth. There is a strange, quiet dignity in this minimalism. You learn that you need very little to be at peace. You spend long hours just sitting, your back against the solid logs, watching the dust motes drift through the shafts of light that occasionally find their way through the chimney hole. You are not waiting for the end. You are simply existing in the middle. You notice the way the cabin breathes. As the fire warms the air, the logs expand and settle with a low, grounding groan. It is a sound that reminds you of the oxen's breathing, heavy, patient, and slow. You find yourself matching your own breath to the rhythm of the house. Inhale the scent of the pine. Exhale the tension of the past. You are becoming as still as the trees outside. You think about the Pioneer Palace car, which is now buried somewhere under the white, its mirrors dark and its finery hidden. It seems like a relic from a different life, a dream you had once about a girl in a lace dress. Here, in the cabin, reality is made of wool, wood, and fire. It is a simpler reality, and in many ways, a more comforting one. The snow continues to fall, a persistent, silent visitor that never seems to tire. You watch it through the doorway, a curtain of white that blurs the world into a soft, featureless haze. It is the ultimate, boring spectacle, a repetitive motion that has a profound, hypnotic effect. You find that you can watch it for hours without ever feeling the need for anything to change. It is a visual lullaby, a constant reminder that the rest of the world is paused. You are in a state of grace, a quiet bubble of existence that the winter has carved out for you. You feel a sense of gratitude for the thick logs and the mossy chinking. They are your skin now, your protection against the infinite white. In the evenings, when the fire burns low and the cabin is filled with a deep, purple twilight, you listen to the stories being told in the dark. There are no shouts and no loud laughter, just the low, murmuring voices of people sharing memories. They talk about the taste of a fresh apple in autumn, the sound of a church bell in a distant town, or the feel of a warm rain on a summer afternoon. These stories are like small, glowing lanterns passed from hand to hand. They don't need to be exciting. Their value lies in their familiarity. You let the voices wash over you, not needing to contribute, just enjoying the human warmth of the sound. It is a rhythmic, gentle hum that lulls you toward sleep. You think about a quirky historical tidbit regarding the Forlorn Hope group, the small band of survivors who eventually tried to walk out of the mountains on makeshift snowshoes. You imagine the craftsmanship of the shoes, made from the bows of the wagons and the hides of the cattle. But that is a story of movement, and you are currently a student of stillness. You look at your own feet, tucked into thick wool stockings. They are happy to be still. They have walked across a continent, and they have earned this rest. You feel the weight of the blankets over your legs, a heavy, reassuring pressure that grounds you to the earth. The cold of the Sierra winter is a unique sensation. It isn't a sharp, biting cold that makes you shiver. It is a deep, heavy cold that seems to slow down the very molecules of the air. It makes the world feel solid and permanent. You notice that when you speak, your breath lingers in the air for a long time, a white ghost of a thought that slowly fades into the dimness. This slowness is infectious. Your thoughts move more slowly. Your heart beats more slowly, and your worries seem to dissolve into the general stillness of the room. You are not in a hurry for spring. Spring is a world of mud and noise and effort. Winter is a world of silence and sleep. You lie down on your bed of pine boughs and blankets, feeling the textures of the world against your skin. The wool is coarse but warm. The pine needles are sharp but fragrant. You pull a heavy quilt up to your chin, feeling the instant enclosure of the warmth. The fire has become a bed of glowing coals, a soft, red eye in the center of the dark. You watch it until your eyelids grow heavy and the light becomes a blurred, golden smudge. Outside, the snow is still falling, adding another inch to the roof, another layer of insulation between you and the stars. The cabin is a womb of wood and shadow, and you are safe within it. Historians still argue whether the party's despair was as absolute as the later journals suggested, or if there were long stretches of quiet, domestic peace like the one you are experiencing now. You choose to believe in the peace. You choose to value the stillness. The Donner Party story is often told as a tragedy of movement and mistakes. But here, in the heart of the winter, it is a story of endurance and the quiet power of the human spirit to find comfort in the dark. You are a part of that endurance. You are a tiny, steady flame in a world of ice. As you drift toward sleep, you imagine the cabin being slowly covered by the snow until it is just a small, white mound in a vast white forest. From the outside, you have disappeared. But on the inside, you are warm, you are breathing, and you are at rest. The rhythm of the winter, the falling snow, the settling logs, the simmering water, becomes the rhythm of your dreams. You are falling, slowly and gently, into a sleep that is as deep and silent as the mountain itself. The peaks are high, the snow is deep, and the world is asleep, and you are falling right along with it. The world has begun to tilt, almost imperceptibly, back toward the sun. You notice it first in the quality of the light that filters through the chimney hole of your cabin. It is no longer that flat, bruised silver of mid-winter. It has taken on a thin, golden clarity, like a very weak tea. You find yourself sitting in the doorway more often now, your feet resting on the hard, packed snow that has become your porch. The silence of the mountain is still there, but it has changed its tone. It is no longer a heavy, suffocating silence. It is a waiting silence. You listen, and for the first time in months, you hear a sound that isn't the wind or the settling logs. It is a soft, rhythmic tink, 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 the sound of water dripping from the eaves of the cabin. It is the heartbeat of the thaw, a slow and steady percussion that marks the beginning of the end of your long, white sleep. You watch as the snow begins to recede from the trunks of the great pine trees. It pulls away in a perfect circle, revealing a dark, damp ring of earth and old needles. This sight is more beautiful to you than any garden you have ever seen. The earth is dark, nearly black, and it carries the scent of ancient, waking life. You reach out and touch the damp ground, feeling the cold, gritty texture between your fingers. It is a reminder that the world still exists beneath the white shroud. You feel a sense of quiet, rhythmic hope rising in your chest, matching the steady drip of the melting ice. The world is not just white and gray anymore. It is beginning to remember its other colors. You see a flash of blue as a mountain jay lands on a branch, its feathers a shocking, vibrant contrast to the snow. The bird doesn't sing. It simply watches you with a bright, intelligent eye, a fellow survivor of the high peaks. The mainstream historical fact that anchors this moment is the arrival of the first relief party on February 19th, 1847. You are sitting near the fire when you hear a sound that feels impossible. A human voice, not from within the cabin, but from the world outside. It is not a shout, but a low, measured call. You step out into the blinding light of the afternoon, squinting against the glare of the melting snow. There, coming over the ridge, are 7 men. They move with a slow, heavy rhythm, their snowshoes sinking and rising in the soft, wet slush. They look like giants against the horizon, their faces dark and weathered, their clothes tattered by the forest. They do not run. They move with the deliberate, patient pace of people who know the mountain. You watch them approach, their shadows stretching long and thin across the white lake. Among these men is a figure who provides a quirky, incredible tidbit of history: John Stark. While many of the relief efforts were hampered by the impossible conditions, Stark became a legend of the trail for his sheer, unyielding physical strength and his peculiar, joyful spirit. Historians and witnesses alike would later tell stories of how Stark, a man of massive build, refused to leave any of the children behind. He would often carry 2 children at a time through the deep, treacherous drifts, one tucked under each arm like bundles of precious cargo. As he walked, he didn't grumble or complain about the weight. Instead, he laughed and told jokes, his deep voice a rhythmic, comforting boom that echoed through the canyons. He treated the life and death struggle as a series of small, manageable steps, a philosophy of movement that helped the weary survivors find the strength to keep their own feet moving. You watch the way he moves, a pillar of human resilience in a world of ice. As you prepare to leave the cabin for the last time, you find yourself moving with a strange, slow reluctance. This small, dark room has been your entire universe for months. You touch the logs one last time, feeling the rough bark that has protected you from the storms. You leave the copper pot by the hearth and the pile of pine boughs in the corner. You are stepping out of the stillness and back into the rhythm of the journey. The walk down the mountain is different than the climb. The snow is no longer a solid wall. It is a decaying, porous thing. It gives way under your feet with a soft, sucking sound, a rhythmic squelch that marks every step. You find yourself following the track made by the relief party, a narrow, packed ribbon of white that winds between the trees. The light stays with you longer now. The afternoons are stretched thin and golden, the sun hanging low and heavy in the western sky. You walk in a state of half-dreaming, your body moving on autopilot while your mind focuses on the sensation of the air. It is growing warmer. You can feel the change in the way the wind touches your face. It is no longer a sharp, icy blade, but a soft, damp cloth. You smell the change before you see it. The scent of the high pines begins to mix with the smell of wet earth, then the smell of dry grass, and finally, the sweet, heavy scent of the valley floor. It is a vertical map of the world, experienced through your nose. You breathe in the layers of the mountain, letting each one settle into your memory. Historians still argue whether the extreme weather of 1846-47 was a once-in-a-century anomaly or the beginning of a larger climatic shift that influenced Western migration patterns for decades. Some suggest that the party was simply unlucky, caught in a little ice age spike that no one could have predicted. You think about this as you look back at the peaks one last time. To you, the mountain doesn't feel like a statistic or an anomaly. It feels like a person you have come to know very well. It is a silent, formidable teacher who has taught you the value of a single spark, the warmth of a wool blanket, and the profound importance of the next slow step. The scholarly debates are for the libraries of the future. For you, the reality is the weight of your boots and the growing warmth of the sun. You encounter the second relief party near the Bear Valley. Among them is James Reed, the man who led the party from Springfield so many months ago. He has returned for his family, his face a mask of determination and relief. The meeting is quiet, a moment of deep, unspoken understanding. There is no need for grand speeches. You see the way he looks at the mountains, not with anger, but with a somber respect. You are all part of the same story now, a story that is finally moving toward its conclusion. The pace of the group picks up as you reach the lower elevations. The snow disappears entirely, replaced by a carpet of vibrant, emerald green grass. It is a color so bright it almost hurts your eyes. You watch the way the wind moves through the grass, a rhythmic, shimmering wave that reminds you of the Great Plains. But here, the air is soft and humid, carrying the promise of the Pacific. You are walking through the foothills now, a landscape of rolling oak groves and golden poppies. The sound of the mountain streams has turned into the sound of rushing rivers, full and powerful with the melted snow of the summits. You listen to the water as it tumbles toward the sea, a constant, roaring song of liberation. You feel the weight of the winter falling away from your shoulders, replaced by a lightness that makes you feel as though you are floating. Your rhythm is no longer a struggle against the elements. It is a celebration of the earth. You see the first blossoms on the fruit trees, tiny, pale stars of pink and white that smell of honey. You realize that you have made it. The Go Sleepy journey of the Donner Party is reaching its final, quiet destination. The destination is Sutter's Fort, a massive, adobe-walled sanctuary in the heart of the Sacramento Valley. You see the white walls in the distance, shimmering in the heat of the afternoon. It looks like a mirage, but as you get closer, you realize it is solid and real. You walk through the gates, your boots meeting the hard, sun-baked earth of the courtyard. The sounds of civilization wrap around you. The lowing of cattle, the rhythmic clink of a blacksmith's hammer, the soft murmur of voices in a language you recognize. It is a world of noise and light and movement. But even here, in the middle of the bustle, you carry the silence of the mountain within you. You have learned how to be still. You have learned how to find the rhythm in the boredom and the beauty in the slow path. You find a place to sit under a large, spreading oak tree. The shade is deep and cool, a green umbrella that protects you from the valley sun. You lean your back against the rough bark, feeling the solidity of the tree. You watch the way the sunlight flickers through the leaves, creating a shifting mosaic of light on the ground. You are safe. The journey is over. The mountains are behind you, a line of jagged, white ghosts on the eastern horizon. You look at them with a sense of peace, knowing that you have crossed them one slow step at a time. The rhythm of the trail, the wheels, the oxen, the salt, the snow, the cabin, has led you here to this quiet moment under the oak tree. You feel a deep, settling tiredness in your bones, but it is a good tiredness. It is the fatigue of a life fully lived and a challenge fully met. You close your eyes and listen to the sounds of the valley. They are a lullaby of the living world. You hear the rustle of the oak leaves, the distant call of a hawk, and the rhythmic breathing of the people around you. You are part of the pulse of the earth. You are no longer a traveler. You are a resident of the dream. The west is no longer a horizon. It is the ground beneath your feet. You breathe in the sweet, warm air of California, and you let the world fade away into a soft, golden blur. The story of the Donner Party is often told as a cautionary tale, but for you, it is a story of the quiet power of endurance. It is a reminder that even in the deepest winter, the sun is still there, waiting to return. It is a lesson in the beauty of the slow, the steady, and the silent. You let your thoughts drift like the blossoms falling from the trees. You are falling, slowly and gently, into a rest that is as vast and peaceful as the valley itself. The mountains are high, but you have crossed them. The snow was deep, but it has melted. The rest is absolute. The journey has reached its end, and the world is growing very soft and very still around you. Think of the long, golden path you have walked, from the rolling prairies to the high, quiet peaks. All of that movement, all of those steps, have brought you to this moment of perfect, unmoving peace. You can feel the warmth of the valley sun on your skin, a gentle, golden weight that encourages you to let go of the day. The sounds of the fort are fading now, becoming a distant, indistinct hum that is no more than a whisper in the back of your mind. Your breathing is slow and regular, a calm tide that rises and falls within you. There is no rush anymore. There are no more mountains to climb and no more deserts to cross. You are exactly where you need to be. Imagine the great oak tree above you, its roots deep in the warm earth, its branches reaching toward the soft, evening sky. You are like that tree, grounded, safe, and at rest. The history we have shared tonight is now just a part of the quiet air around you, a soft echo that lulls you deeper into your blankets. Let your shoulders sink into the mattress. Let your mind drift like a leaf on a calm, slow river. The world is large, but your space is small, warm, and perfectly secure. The story is told, the fires are embers, and the stars are the only lights left. You are moving now into the most beautiful landscape of all, the quiet, silver country of sleep. There is nothing left to do but drift, sweet dream.